Hey, Saddleback family, welcome to another Saddleback at Home devotional. And today I want to start with a question. When's the last time you've been really bored? I mean, really bored. It probably has been a while, right? Because we now have the entire world in our pockets. But there used to be times when there was absolutely nothing to do, right? Maybe you were at a doctor's office or a plane, but you'd run out of things to do because there were no phones to distract us. And as much as none of us want to return to a pre-digital world, those bored spaces actually represented potential. There was time for prayer, time to examine your own thoughts, or just to sit in silence. But thanks to multitasking and multi-screening, we now have an 8-second attention span. That's actually 1 second less than a goldfish. That's not a pretty picture, right? And when we can't focus, when we're distracted, we can't be present. We can't be present to ourselves, we can't be present to other people, and we can't be present to God. If only there was a way to undo this, if there was some wisdom or a practice that we could engage in that would help fight the distraction and help us focus on God. Well, the good news is that there is, and today we're going to look at that. It's called silence and solitude. And this is a practice that Jesus did throughout his life and ministry. It's safe to say that Jesus was a busy guy. And I'm pretty sure that he could have never slept, never took a break, and he would have never run out of things to do. There was just a lot of needs for him to meet. So what did he do? Did he sleep less and work harder? Not exactly. We read in Mark 1:35, "And rising very early in the morning, while it was still dark, he departed and went out to a desolate place, and there he prayed. And when everyone was seeking for him, he went off to a quiet place to be alone with the Father. And when Simon Peter finds him, he probably says in a kind of whiny and exhausted way, 'Everyone is looking for you.' And this is how Jesus responds. He says in Mark 1:38, 'Let us go to the next towns, that I may preach there also, for this is why I came out.'" So Jesus went into these desolate, lonely places to be renewed and to get clarity. And this was a habit his entire life. I don't know about you, but this is the opposite of what I do. When things get busy, I just dig in. I work harder. I probably spend less time with God just so I have more time to get activity done. But if Jesus, the Son of God, needed time away with the Father, I'm betting that we do too. So this practice of withdrawing to be with God became known over the years as silence and solitude. And silence and solitude, they just make space for God to do his work in you and through you. They make space for God to do his work in you and then through you. It's just intentional time to be alone with God and with our thoughts. So there's two types of silence. There's the internal silence and the external silence. External silence, that's just easy. That's no noise. That's no phone notifications, no TV on the background, no noisy neighbors. And then internal silence is no mental chatter. It's silencing those racing thoughts in your head. So when I say to cultivate silence, I mean both the internal and external silence. We quiet our space around us and we quiet our minds. And then the second component is solitude. And solitude is a way of disengaging with the world for just a moment to re-engage with God. This could be in nature. It could just be on an armchair in a quiet corner of your house. But the point is that you find a place where you can be alone with God. And while silence will break the power of noise in your life, solitude breaks the power of busyness. Solitude frees you from your normal patterns and interactions just for a moment, and then allows you to connect to God's rhythm and God's timing. So we get alone with God, we silence the internal and external noise, and then what do? Well, the point is to actually do nothing. In silence and solitude, you actually learn to stop doing, you stop producing, you stop pleasing people, and you stop worrying. You just stop doing everything except for being yourself before God. And when you're yourself before God, you're going to discover that you are known and that you are loved. So let's get practical. How do we do this? Well, there's a lot of ways that you can practice this, but here's two. The first is just called a 1-minute pause. So we all have these transition moments in our life where we're going from one event to another, one meeting to another. You might be driving somewhere. And in those moments between events, I just challenge you to pause for 60 seconds. You just sit in silence before God for those 60 seconds, and it's so effective. If you're often in full tilt hurry mode like me, just rushing through the day with no breath, this is a great practice for you because this 1 minute pause, this little pause will disengage you from the world's pace and then help you to refocus your attention on God. One more practice, I just call it see and hear. And this, you just find a quiet place to listen and observe to what God is saying to you. You know, the Spirit speaks to us when our heart is silent and still before the Lord. So you just need to get away, spend a little time listening. Just say, God, I'm here. What are you trying to tell me? And bring a journal with you so you can write down what you hear, what God says to you. And if you feel like God never talks to you, I just challenge you to give this a try. I encourage you to give this a try. You know, we all have our burdens to bear. We're all yoked to something, right? We can be yoked to the world, and the thing that we're going to reap from that is emotional and physical and spiritual exhaustion. Or we can be yoked to Jesus and have life. This is what he says in Matthew 11:29 and 30. He says, "Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and lowly in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light." Will you pray with me? Father, you say to be still and know that you are God. You say that when our soul waits in silence, so that we'll find hope in you. So we just ask that you find us in that stillness, that you speak to us. We ask that you help us to cultivate silence and solitude in our lives. And whether it's big or small, show us some spaces and some places each day that we can be with you. Amen.